To Atlanta Live. I'm BJ Arnett. I'm so glad to be with you this evening. It has been a while. How many of you have had babies since I've been gone? Oh, just kidding. Don't run. Don't get scared. I'm not prophesying anything. Oh, I could be. Anyway. Hope you all are having a great evening so far. This is going to be a wonderful evening. I got it on good word from the Lord our God that it's going to be a fantastic evening. For those of you who are interested in receiving a gift, open your arms wide because Daddy God's got one for you. Tonight is all about you. This is the gift. You will receive what you are open to. You will be gifted if you are ready to receive the gift. God is always doing great things in your life. You don't have to wait for it. You just have to open your arms and receive it. He's ready for you, and I hope you are ready for him. And I hope you are ready for the Glory Bound Quartet, Just Another Mile. The Glory Bound Quartet. You guys are awesome. Those harmonies are crazy awesome. Blessed by God. Thank you so much. We've got our very special guest all throughout the evening. Every guest is special, but particularly because of the stories that they tell. Not because of a made-up story, but real life, real truth, unashamed, unveiled, just their story. Our first guests are talking about some real things and real issues that we really need to think about. Just food for thought, not something to say, oh, that's me, but food for thought and ways to move. Wisdom is about to come your way. Miss McFall, thank you so much for joining us, along with Miss Bo Smith. Ladies, thank you so much. Say your last name again.
Myel Bowers.
Bowers Smith. I do apologize, and I told you. And I just wanted to say your last name so I wouldn't mess up the first names. But thank you all so much for joining me. I know that you both have a serious story to tell, but it's all really about being able to give information for people to use so that they are able to digest exactly where you're coming from. But Ronnika McFall, please start by giving us an understanding of your daily walk as the External Communication Manager and Biofilm Marketing and Communications with, wow, that's a mouthful.
That's a long name, but
with the American Red Cross.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Ronnika McFall with American Red Cross Communications, and we're here today to really spread the message about the need for blood. There's a constant need for blood donations and platelet donations, and a lot of people don't know that blood and platelet donations can save the lives, can help save the lives of cancer patients. So that's why Myel Bowers is here today. She's a breast cancer survivor who received blood life-saving products to save her life, and now she's here to tell her story.
There's something so amazing to me. When I was growing up, and I don't know about you guys, I always heard of people going to give blood. Yeah. Always. Yeah. It was kind of like I knew that's where my grandpa was going. I knew that's where my uncle was going. I knew men and women in our neighborhood. That was just something that they did. Yeah. But today it's a little different.
Yeah. Honestly, right now, a lot of people are not giving blood. Only 1 out of 100 people actually donate blood. That's less than 10% of people that are eligible to donate blood. The need for is constant, and especially from diverse blood donors. So if you're a type O, you're a type B negative right now, the Red Cross actually has an urgent need for blood. And it only takes a pinch to save a life.
That's very, very true. It only takes a pinch. You know, McFall, your story is intensely personal.
Yes.
And you've voluntarily said, I'll tell it so that someone else will receive from it.
Yes.
So take us back to the understanding that you had to get in your head when someone says to you the words cancer.
Well, the first thing I say is relax, fight, continue to race. Mm-hmm. That's just because I'm a fighter. I'm a natural fighter. But going back, when I was told that I was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, stage 4, I didn't know what to say. I was shocked. I sat back. I had to grasp it for myself. My sister is like one of my best friends. We had to come together. It was like a come to Jesus meeting.
Yes.
Because I was like, I know this is not me. I cannot understand it. I am Superwoman. My mom named me Ram Man because I was in ROTC. And I said, no, I'm Superwoman. This cannot happen to me. Mm-hmm. So I will start with that.
As you continued through the journey, did you realize how important blood donation was to your very life as you were going through this process?
Yes, ma'am. My breast surgeon actually kind of counted me out. He pulled my sister to the side and he said, it's not looking good for her. So when I got through the actual, my actual treatments, my blood was real thin. So I had to
receive platelets.
Right, receive the platelets. And I was like, what was this for? And it was like, because your blood needed to clot before I received the actual breast implants.
And one thing about platelets, platelets has half a shelf life, so that is a constant need.
So it means that you've got to move quickly.
We have to move
Once
quickly.
you do receive it,
right.
you've
Once
got
we
to
get the platelets from the donor, it goes to the cancer patient within 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, and it takes about an hour to donate platelets, but one thing about the American Red Cross, when you go to the donor center, you can watch Netflix, you can watch TV. I always say bring a friend, and right after your donation, you get nice snacks and sometimes incentives.
As you go through this process, and you've had to help so many people and share the message, and you as well, how are you received? Because there are so many people who will say, no, you know, I don't know anybody, or it's not for me. How are you received? I've heard a myriad of things.
When we donating?
When people say they don't really want to donate.
Well, honestly, people don't donate blood because they're not asked or they're just not aware. So it's news stations like you and people that are willing to spread the message. Once they hear that the need for blood is constant, donors are always rolling in. So I don't get pushback about I don't want to donate blood. I get pushback about, okay, tell me why. Tell me what's important. So sickle cell patients, cancer patients, burn victims, a car accident. My uncle was in a motorcycle car accident when we were younger, and he almost died, but because of the blood products, he survived. I was a little girl realizing that, and so now today I'm able to share that message with the American Red Cross.
As you think about all of the people that have been saved and have received blood and have received platelets and lives that have been changed, there has got to be a couple of people, particularly on your mind, that you can think of, just like this brave lady, that have been able to just blow people's mind with their resilience and able to go through this, whatever the tragedy, whatever the situation is, and come out on the other side with such greatness.
Absolutely. One donation can save up to 3 lives.
When I look at you, there is nothing but a survivor on your face.
That's right.
There's nothing but a fighter.
That's right.
There's a bright and shining smile. There's so many things that when I look at you, I see in terms of your brightness.
Right.
That it could not possibly be snuffed out. As you've gone through this, and now you're on the other side, and you're looking fabulous in this black dress. Yes, you are.
Thank you, darling.
So as you are on the other side, what do you say to women about taking care of themselves?
I encourage them. So let me start with inflammatory breast cancer. There's no lump. So when you're doing your monthly breast exams, you don't know. Like, I didn't have a lump, so I didn't know. So when I noticed it, I was already at stage 3. When I got my biopsy, I was at stage 4. Wow. But I tell them, if it's just a little itch on your breast or a little tenderness, if you get the tenderness every month, regardless, just go to the doctor and get it checked out, because you never know.
At this point in your life, and now life is even more precious than it was before.
Yes, it is.
and again, that bright smile. What do you see on the horizon for your life as you've been given such an opportunity, not just to tell your testimony, but to live it out loud in front of people?
I continue to fight for people that can't fight for themselves. I give blood. I didn't used to give blood before, I graduated high school, but when I joined the Army, that was something that we was told to do. Like, hey, everybody line up, you giving blood. So that's what I've been doing. I've been giving blood. But I would tell everybody, like Ronnika, hey, let's give blood.
Yeah, and you can visit redcrossblood.org, enter in your zip code for the nearest blood drive. You also can download the Red Cross Blood Donor app on your phone, and if you are a regular blood donor, you can track where your blood is going on the blood donor app.
There's so much to soak in when you're talking about blood donation, but WATC has taken this and put it on the forefront of their list of to-do, to announce, to champion, and it's so important. We thank you so much for just taking out the opportunity, first of all, to tell your testimony.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm just looking forward to all the great things you've got coming up, because
The
you
doctor
just
called her a miracle.
No,
Yes, he did.
But you can see that. You can see that. As you go about your daily life, know that people are looking at your bright smile and recognizing
you.
that automatically there's something great about you. But when you tell your story, it's even more so.
That's right.
I have to ask you this. You
Yes,
mentioned
ma'am.
your sister.
Yes.
And she was your champion in this with you.
Yes.
As you were going through the process and you were holding on to each other, what was the one thing that just was your heartfelt desire, other than living? 'Cause that's there's living, then there's life, and what you do with it. But what was your heartfelt desire being with your sister during that time?
We were always close. I was always her protector. But to have her be my protector at that moment, because I'm the oldest, and she's the second, the middle child, it was being able to understand a different relationship between her and I, along with my sorority sisters. I don't have to mention their names, but they were there as well. They was right by my side. Ronnika, they all were there supporting me, making sure that I was getting through it. And I mean, my classmates, everybody was there. I mean, I had a village getting me through it, so.
There's something to be said for supporting one another, for really being a part of a sisterhood that is a real sisterhood.
Yes, ma'am.
That is a place where you can feel safe.
That's right.
A place where you can feel that you can lean on them and they can lean on you.
Yes, ma'am.
It is outstanding to meet you both. Just
Thank you.
two fabulously bright and shining women. Thank you so much.
You're fabulous yourself,
oh, well, I'll receive that. Thank you so much. God bless you guys, and thank you again for being here. Come back anytime. The stories are great, and the time is now to satisfy the need.
All right, thank you.
Glory Bound Quartet, New Grace. Thank you, guys.
All of grace is my story, all the way from earth to glory. Since by grace He lifted me from sin and woe. Living grace He has extended, as on Him my heart depended. But there'll be new grace when it's my time to go. Grace not yet discovered, grace not yet uncovered, grace from His bountiful store. Grace to cross the river, grace to face forever. There'll be new grace I've not needed before. There's been grace for every trial. There's been grace for every mile. There's been grace sufficient from His vast supply. Grace to make my heart more tender, grace to love and pray for sinners. But there'll be new grace when it's my time to die. Grace not yet discovered, grace not yet uncovered, grace from His bountiful store. Grace to cross the river,
Thank you, Glory Bound. My next guest is Jonathan Lotson. He is the author of Effective Leadership, Top 10 Areas Every Christian Leader Should Consider When Moving Towards Effective Leadership. I'm going to dive right into this because I opened in your table of contents, I am a leader, your table of contents, number 1,
Yes, ma'am.
self-care.
Yes.
Let's start off with the hard stuff. Why is it so difficult for Christian leaders to stop and handle self-care?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And to answer the question, I feel a lot of leaders feel as if they have so much to do and they're trying to check things off of their list, forgetting that we are human beings, not human doings. And so sometimes we focus so much on what we're called to do that we forget that God is also trying to work in and through us. And so we get so busy with the job of what we are tasked to do, and we take it for granted that it's impossible for us to continuously keep going without taking breaks. As if any racer, any car, you can't keep driving from here to California and feel
Without
as if-
putting gas in.
Right. And so it's the same thing with us. And so we have to make sure that we have to take time, because if we're too busy to spend time with God, that means that we're too busy.
Let's roll this back a minute.
Certainly.
For every author,
Yes.
there is a story inside of you that brought you to this story.
Certainly.
Did this story, this handbook, if you will, effectively change your life as you were writing it, or because you lived it and then had to write it?
I would say it's because I lived it and then I had to write it. Growing up, I've always been involved in the church, and I've been privileged to see a lot of things behind the scenes. I grew up in my great uncle's church in Washington, D.C., and throughout life, as time went on, I kind of, it wasn't cool to be a middle school preacher, if you will. So I did my own thing, head behind music, ended up going to Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts,
Yes.
and there I had this strong sense of conviction, and from there I went to get my master's and then got my doctorate in strategic leadership. And throughout this whole journey of mine, I just had an urgency to really make sure that I help leaders. I just have a desire to help the church. I believe that the church is one of the greatest pillars, one of the greatest avenues to help our people. And as it was back in the day during the civil rights movement, it still is a beacon of light even today. And I believe that the Christian leader, if you're a pastor, if you're a leader, if you're just a leader in your home, I believe that these things that I talk about in this book is helpful to you, because it helped me. When I'm thinking about how I'm going to be successful, I have to make sure that I'm innovative. I have to make sure I have self-care, and throughout my life, moments in which I didn't practice these things, you can really tell, you can really feel it, because it comes out in your leadership.
Yes.
And it's come out in mine. And so I really had a burden to really help all who are pursuing leadership and who are already walking in their leadership journey.
It's interesting that you said that you looked back at being at your uncle's church,
Yes.
and growing up there, and then your own personal walk. When you come out of those loving arms of the church family,
Yes.
and you begin to go to college, and you experience the different world.
It's different.
It's very different.
Yes.
So it takes a different kind of self-care.
Yes.
It takes a spiritual self-care that answers the natural self-care.
Right.
I noticed that in your book, you have scriptures on every few pages.
Yes.
There's scriptures that uphold what you are speaking in these pages.
Yes, ma'am.
As you move through the writing of this book, the understanding of the strategic plan of all of life,
Yes.
the self-care, all of these things, how have you found that people are able to step out of the safety net, the safety walls of the church family, and maneuver in this opposite, sometimes very opposite world that we live in?
Yeah. Well, I really believe that oftentimes people, parishioners in particular, we put the responsibility of their walk and their, how they journey through life in the hands of the preacher or the minister. And I'm a minister as well, and I know that we do have an obligation. However, at the end of the day, every single person they have a obligation to themselves and to their own personal walk to do the best that they can do. And so I really believe that when people put things into their own hands and say, at the end of the day, this is my journey, this is my life, and begin to take on these steps outside of the church walls and really take on their own journey, they really begin to get some growth. And one of the main things is accountability, which is a section in my book. Sometimes we want to hold other people accountable.
Yes.
But we fail to hold our own selves accountable. And in order for us to be effective leaders, if you're in your home or relationship or whatever leadership capacity you're in, you have to hold your own self accountable.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you brought up accountability, because that's exactly where I was going next. I think that we live in the understanding that certainly we are accountable to God,
yes,
but there is an order of how life is to move given by God. It's God the Father,
yes,
Jesus Christ, his Son. In my instance, it's my husband, then myself, then my children.
Yeah.
Now, when you say that, that's not always popular,
Yes.
because it is the distinct order. However, it's a distinct order that God has given. It is not choice to do it. I am accountable to move in that order.
Yes.
So as accountability becomes a forefront thought in my mind, accountability should also be a forethought in your mind.
Right.
As we move as the body of Christ, do you find that accountability is growing, that we are all coming together and recognizing our own accountability in our homes and in our churches and in our businesses and in our everyday walk? Or are you finding that we cloak accountability with sharp answers and great bombshells, if you will?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't want to be accountable to anybody.
For anything.
For anything. and that really puts us in a bad place. However, I do notice that there are moments in time in which we do come together. And I think that we have to be more intentional about creating these instances or these avenues, if you will, to become accountable. And one of the major things or responsibilities of a leader is to create an accountability culture in which you create where it's welcome, where it's open.
Yes.
And when the leader, him or herself, is open to accountability as well, being held accountable themselves.
You know, I think what I find interesting, and I'm a leader right here, right now. You're a leader right here, right now.
Yes.
But if my husband, who is normally with me and hosting this program, was with me,
Yes.
my leadership comes within his leadership.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like he's taking a leadership away from me. I feel like we are partnering in leadership as unto God,
Yes.
according to the way God's structure of my household, of his household,
Yes.
runs. But again, that is something that you have to grasp, hold on to, want to
Yes.
to live in.
You do.
And it's not necessarily the story of the day, especially when you look outside of the church family.
Yeah.
And sometimes even inside the church family.
You're right. You're right about it.
You have some great topics here. One of the things I want to bring up also is innovation.
Yes.
You know, God and his word is the most amazing innovator I've ever seen. Like sometimes I'm reading today. 5 years from now, that same passage of scripture will have a brand new light to me. It innovates inside of me
Yes.
with my maturity.
That's right.
Talk to us about why innovation is important in our life as a Christian leader.
Certainly. Well, innovation is important because in order to stay relevant, in order to engage, in order to do anything, you have to be willing to be innovative. But the thing that holds so many people back is they're afraid of taking risks. And so we have to get to a place where we're open to taking risks, even if no one is with you, even if no one backing you, if no one is standing by your side, we have to be willing to take risks. And it reminds me of Henry Ford, who was innovative in the transportation industry. He didn't create the transportation industry, but he was innovative and moved people from the horse and carriage stage to actually having automobiles. And he received
so much flack.
He he did. He received so much flack, but he kept on going. And I really believe that everybody, they have to think within themselves that God has given them something. And when they know that God has given them something, they have to chase after it if no one is jumping on the bandwagon when they first say it. And the thing is, if it's been often said that if you say something, you have a dream and you say it and no one says that it's impossible, then maybe you know, you're on to something. Because when God does something, oftentimes it's so big and it's even bigger than what you can even think or imagine. And so innovation, again, it takes risks, and we have to make sure that we're open to it, because when we are innovative, we're opening ourselves up to see God move in a tremendous, tremendous way.
In a tremendous, tremendous way. I totally agree. I think that part of understanding innovation is understanding our ability to be great within the greatness that He's given.
Yes.
Our ability to understand that we are to be strong and courageous. And if He said be strong and courageous multiple times, multiple times, there must be something that you have to be strong and courageous about.
You're right.
So as we innovate, I think one of the things that, and you mentioned it so well, one of the things that we have to step outside of is our own closed-mindedness with ourselves.
Yes.
Sometimes we just don't think of ourselves as the one who has that innovation inside of us.
Right.
But as in fact, God has given us each a special gift of innovation, a special gift of change and growth.
That's right.
When you took a look at this daunting task of writing,
Yes.
did you feel as if you were about to innovate the leadership thought?
Yes. My goal is to really bring so many components together to really make a whole leader, if you will. There are so many leaders who, you know, have a little of this, have a little bit of that. But I think that in this day and age, we really have to be whole in our leadership, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Barna Group came out with a statistic not too long ago that 82% of young adults feel like there's a leadership crisis in our society because there's just not enough good leaders.
Yes.
And I believe that the 10 things that I discuss in this book will help every Christian leader, no matter if they're a pastor, if they're a leader in their home or their relationship or whatever the case may be, especially where I talk about suppressing leader ego. Because I believe that that ego gets us in trouble a whole lot. And if all leaders can really get our egos in check, oh man,
okay, now see, you meddling now, but I'm gonna go up in that. Okay, so here is suppress leader ego.
Yes.
Here is a interesting and very sad component sometimes within the church, is that 5 leaders get together and they forget who is actually leading.
That's right.
How do we get past that leadership ego? Is it simply let's read the word and grow up? Or is it more of there is a methodology that is outside of the Christian home, that is outside of the church, that moves Christian leaders and presses Christian leaders in such a negative way that we have to recognize those things as well?
We definitely do. And just to set the record clear, the ego is not necessarily completely bad. And that's how I open up the chapter. Because our ego, it is, you know, it deals with our self-esteem and so on and so forth, which is important. But our leader ego needs to be suppressed if we go overboard, if you will. And so 2 things I talk about in the book is mentorship and coaching, which is important. Because if no one is telling you you're getting a little beside yourself, 9 times out of 10. So you're
saying you're beside yourself.
Right. And so you need someone who's going to say, hey, you need to watch what you're doing, watch what you're saying, and we need to create guardrails and parameters, and we need to assess ourselves. That's another thing in there, and that helps us with our leader ego. When we assess ourselves and allow other people to assess us, then we really begin to get a look at our own selves from a different perspective.
You know, I think one of the real cool things to do is to have a council of leaders that you trust and that you know will not just tell you what you want to hear, but will tell you what you need to hear. The truth, the things that will help you grow, and instead of those things that keep you in the same place and lacking the growth that God has placed before you. those leaders around you that are your great counsel
Yes.
are real important, and selecting the right ones
You have to.
are real important.
Yes, ma'am.
When you look back at this book and
Yes.
all of the wonderful chapters, because the great titles and in my look through, very, very good. Congratulations on
Thank you. Appreciate that.
what God has done through you and in you.
Yes.
As you look at this book, is there one thing that you wish you could have been able to put in there as well?
If I were to add one more thing, I don't know. I don't think it's one more thing that I wanted to add. In doing this, I didn't just do it by myself. I sought other leaders who I look up to, my pastor, Bishop Hogan, and to so many others, and I picked their brain to see what's going on in our church today. And I was very strategic in coming up with those 10 things. And for right now, I really do feel comfortable and a sense of peace with the 10 things that we have in there.
That's good stuff. That is
Yes,
good
ma'am.
stuff. Jonathan Lotson, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the transparency.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for hearing these steps that are necessary to make the effective leader. Effective leadership, top 10 areas every Christian leader should consider when moving towards effective leadership.
That's it.
That is it. Thank you for
Yes.
being here. This is so awesome, you guys. If you want to give a book for Christmas to someone that you know is leading in a great journey, this may be the book to do that with. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Glory Bound Quartet, remember me.
Three crosses stood upon a hill beneath a darkened sky. People came from miles around to watch the Savior die. Crucified on Calvary between two common thieves. One of them said, "Save yourself," and one, "Remember me." He said, "Lord, remember me. Lord, remember me. When you go into your kingdom, Lord, remember me." There's a lesson to be learned in all these simple words. Today you'll be in paradise, a dying sinner heard. Lofty prayers and golden deeds never save his soul. Simple faith in Jesus Christ was enough to make him whole. He cried, "Lord, remember me. Lord, remember me. When you go into your kingdom, Lord, remember me." And today we find there's no peace of mind, and our prayers just words and phrases. But we hold the key in simplicity. May it be the prayer that rests. Lord, remember me. Lord, remember come in all your glory, Lord, remember me. When you come in all your glory, Lord, remember me.
Glory bound. Thank you so much. Well, our next gentleman here with us, I have to say, you know, there's a soft spot in my heart for young men because I'm a mom with 5 children. My husband and I, Cameron Arnett, have 5 children. We have 2 fabulous daughters and 3 extra special, outstanding young men. So we just adore our children. And you know, when I think about our young men, whether they are our children or my friends' children or the ones that I teach, as I'm a professor at a university, I really, really, really spend a lot of time praying for our young men. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for writing 2 volumes with an outstanding title, Men Magnifying Manhood, Stories That Give Hope and Empowerment. Thank you so much for joining us. This is important, and I want you all to really get down to why in your heart it was important to do. Todd Rose and Matthew Spriggs, thank you again for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Todd, I know you started with the first volume and you picked up with the second volume, Matthew, but tell me, why was this important for you to do?
Well, I have to start that off by giving a special thanks to Dr. Calvin Ellison, who actually brought all the young men together and had the foresight and the vision to bring those people together for the book. But when I met Dr. Ellison, it was almost by chance, and I just happened to have a degree in journalism, and we wound up meeting, and I shared a little bit about my background, and he shared a little bit about what he was doing. And literally, he said the title of the book, Men Magnifying Manhood, and I said, I'm all in. Just let me know what I need to do, because I realized what an important issue it is in our society today. And you you see examples of it on the news all the time, and so much of being a man and so much of fatherhood is a learned behavior. And I thought it was important that we provide, stories of hope and empowerment from young men who have made mistakes, who have journeyed to manhood, to be able to give some hope and empowerment to a younger brother, or who may have gone through some of the same things, so that they could have an example to look forward to be able to learn what it is to be a man. How does a man behave? How does a man carry himself in society? How does a man treat a woman? All of these very important issues that shape families, that shape the broader society. So having that thought process in mind is really what I try to put into my chapter in the book.
It's interesting that you talk about examples before men. It's so important. It is actually that point of a young man being a little boy and being able to walk the way his dad walks. The simplicity of seeing a little boy walk the way his dad walks is part of something that I think we miss in our society, that they pick up mannerisms. Children pick up mannerisms quicker than everything that we say. So they see it and then they model it. When you came to the point of both of you selecting those who would be a part of these rich stories, some of the stories are not the sweetest things in the world. They don't all come off just, like I'm baking cookies and here you are, life was just dandy.
Right.
Why is it important to show all facets of a man's life?
Well, it's because that we are so diverse in what we go through in life and what we do in life, that we need to see these different examples. You have people who grew up without fathers. You have people who grew up with fathers. You have people who grew up in abusive households. And when as men, we have this hold in us where we can feel very alone, or we feel like that it's not just us, it's everybody. And we want to have that spread across where we know that, look, it's everybody. You're not alone. Like, you have someone who's gone through this, who's been through this, and who can also help you get through it, because in this book, you have people who've gone through things and they have overcome them.
I think the overcomer spirit is one of the things that resonates so well with this book, these books, and it is a part of the empowerment. Yeah. It's being able to see, oh, they had this happen to them, but they came through it, they didn't stay in it.
Absolutely.
Tell us some of the stories, and I want to go by volume 1 to volume 2, okay? So give us your top 2 stories out of volume 1.
I have to start with my own, actually. My chapter is called Manhood Under Siege, and I deal with some mistakes that I made as a younger man and becoming a father before I was ready to be one. Mm-hmm. And I went through some struggles there that led to me becoming a part of the child support system, which in many ways was not fair. In some ways it was more of a hindrance than a help.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah,
a lot of people do not realize that it is quite a system.
It is.
And the system is not necessarily for you.
Absolutely. That's a very, very good point. And unless you're in it, you don't really know it and you don't experience that. But that's another reason why I chose to focus on that, because that actually led to some estrangement with my children. And at the end of the chapter, I tell how I came through all of that. And it took me talking to some older men who had been through it before, who had told me, look, just stay the course. Make sure you do what you're supposed to do. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Take your ego and put it to the side. Focus on your child and make sure that you do what you're supposed to do. And, you know, if you have an opportunity in other ways to, you know, fight the system, so to speak, then you take advantage of those opportunities, you know. So that one of my favorites, you know, just because, you know, it came from me. I'll be a little bit biased on that one. But
it's a quite important one, because what you're speaking of has happened to a large portion of men in America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it be divorce or having children at an early age, getting into the system of being paying child support and seeing that that system also has a way of dividing the relationship instead of bringing the relationship together. It can be quite divisive.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting that you would bring that one up as one of the cores, because it did happen to you. And the transparency alone is important.
Absolutely. It was interesting to me how being a part of that system, and I have never been on probation before, but I have friends who have. There are a lot of parallels there.
Yes.
Which is interesting, you know, and that really struck me as I did, you know, research and just being a part of it. I have to mention one of my other favorite chapters by a gentleman named Jason McFall called Lost in Greatness, where he talks about growing up without his father and eventually meeting his father later in life and not having that example there and not really knowing what to do and which way to go. And he got into a lot of trouble and he was just walking a really bad path. And he came to Christ, and that really brought him back. But in doing so, he actually became involved with some older men in this church and older leaders in this community, and that really brought him back. So that's one of my other favorites in the book. Yeah.
In both of the examples you've given, however, you talk about an older man giving that guidance to a younger man. That is a key component in this healing process, in this growing process, in this modeling, if you will, what a strong, healthy Christian man looks like. This is it.
Yes.
You know, you've got to see it before you. So talk to us about your 2 favorite parts.
Oh my goodness, where do I start? You talk about 15 men who poured out their hearts.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And one that really touched me was a story of a gentleman a brother who was molested twice at a very young age.
Wow.
and how that affected him emotionally, psychologically, and how that played a part in his relationships with women going on as he got older. So that really touched me in a way where I'm like, there's a lot of men, little boys who have gotten molested
Yes.
at a very young age, and they don't talk about it. So for him to pour that out, it just touched me, and I was like, man, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because we need that type of encouragement, so you know you're not alone, and you know that you can overcome and succeed still in life.
Gosh, there is a gentleman who has written a book recently that speaks directly to this, this very same thing happened to him. And we're seeing it on the news quite consistently.
Yes.
Through the Catholic Church and all of the unveiling that's happening there. But there's so much that we didn't hear about growing up. And now men who are 40 and 50 years old are now bearing their heart and soul of a molestation that happened to them when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
Yes.
years old.
Yes.
There's got to be a place to heal, and perhaps telling the story begins the healing process.
Oh, definitely it does, because when you know that someone else released, and it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. When you see someone else do it, it makes you bold and brave to do it yourself, so you can finally get that type of healing you need. And another story that touched me very, very much, that went throughout that whole book, was the fatherless homes. That pinnacle, we don't understand how important it is to have that male, that man in the house, because you get a perspective from the mother, but then you also get a perspective from the male, the father, and it's a very important structure.
Yes.
Because when God said that the father is the head of a house, it was for a reason. It was for a reason.
You know some folk ain't gonna like you for saying that, but go on and say it, because it is the truth.
It's the truth, but it's not. But when you understand God, you understand that it is more than just, oh, I'm the head, I'm this macho man.
Exactly.
No, we talking spiritual here.
Exactly.
So that shouldn't even cross the mind. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Dad has an order to his household.
Yes, he does.
And the way that he has set up the order is so beautiful when all the parties of the order will understand their positioning.
Right.
I am not less than my husband, who is the leader of my home.
Nope.
He is the head of my house. I am equally loved. My function is simply different.
Yes.
I am equally loved, but I function differently. His function is to overall, he has to take care of me. According to the Word of God, he is to die for me as Christ died for the church.
Absolutely.
So I like my position. I'll keep mine. I will. I'll keep mine. But I think sometimes we get into this position that we don't understand God's biblical definition of the total house.
Yes. Yes.
So we get into that. But then when you look at that leadership position is taken away, and mom, out of desperation, because there is no male leadership in the home, has to take on a role that is double duty.
Absolutely.
It's not hers to take,
not
but it
hers.
is not hers to leave either.
No.
There should be a gentleman within the family of God who walks alongside of her, that is an uncle, that is a grandfather perhaps, that is a leader within the church, that is simply a minister of Christ, which we all are to be, that will come alongside to help. But when that leadership of the male comes out of the home, then we are now looking at young men who are trying to figure out who I am
Yep.
because they haven't had the example before them.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And we see why the enemy attacks that part of the house.
Yes.
Because when you break down the structure, I don't care how solid that foundation is, when that foundation is broken, the whole house crumbles.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Those are such important storylines. And I know that when, when you're sitting hearing these stories and you're talking to the men that you are responsible for gathering this story from, you're affected. That each of you had to have been totally affected by what they were saying and how they were saying and what they went through. What would you say branded you in each of your journeys in writing this? Because something did, because you just can't listen to all of that without it making an indelible mark.
Absolutely. As a writer, even before I became, a part of the book, so much of the journalism is the facts, the who, what, when, why, where,
Yes.
But having the opportunity to write something from my heart is truly therapeutic for me and emotional at the same time, because
I don't know how you got through it, because I'm listening to it and I'm like,
I told this funny story with him about how Dr. Ellison, I called him one day, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this. I got this going on, I got that, I got
yeah, because life still happens.
And he was like, your name's already on the cover. You're not getting out of this. Plain and simple. And I said, you know what? I'm going to forge through. And, you were right on the money. It's emotional. It's something that forces you to come to grips with those emotions. And even, the breaking up of the household, I spoke to that in my chapter. Even though I wasn't married to these women, they had to take on a dual role because of my absence. And I had to deal with it. I had to reconcile that, with them later on, once things got to a certain point. But I really had to, at the end of the day, apologize to them for my lack of understanding at the end of the day. And I had to apologize to my son and my daughter for my lack of understanding. I said, your dad's not perfect, but I'm here to say, look, I'm really trying to make this thing right. It wasn't always easy. It didn't happen quickly, but it happened because I stayed there. And once I realized my position and where I was supposed to be, I took it on full force, full steam ahead, and I didn't back down from it, no matter how hard it got.
And that's the thing, doing what has to be done, even when it's hard, even when it's painful.
Right.
I've got about 30 seconds left with you guys. Well, I just have to say, powerful stories. How can folks get in touch with you if they want to get you to come to a group of men that need to hear just from you, from your heart, of what these stories are all about? How can they get in touch?
Well, you can reach me at maincoursencouragement.com. Also, we have a Men Magnifying Manhood Facebook group. You can also reach that, and you can get in contact. We're on all social media sites as well at maincoursencouragement.com.
maincoursencouragement.com. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Powerful stories, and your testimonies and the testimonies of the gentlemen in the book, I know that will make someone feel so much better and to live a life differently.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you guys, I love you so much. I hope you'll stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Well, as you can see, we're back on the music set, and I'm going to sing this next song with these gentlemen. Why are you laughing? I heard laughter over here, and I don't think I appreciate it, but it's all right. No, I sing sometime. Why are you smiling so hard?
I'm just happy.
Thank you for being here, you guys. I know you all have a new CD out, and things have been going very, very well. You sound great. Your harmonies are on point, absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate you all being here. But tell us about the new CD.
Well, the CD is entitled Grace, and the song New Grace that I did earlier, the title came from that. This is probably our 16th or 17th CD since we've been a quartet, and just filled with songs about Jesus.
Now, how long have you guys been together?
Well, the group is 19 years old.
All right.
Stephen and Gary have been with me for about 7 years. And then the piano player, Rick's been with me about 3.5. And then Eric is our new man on the block. He's been with me about 4 or 5 months.
He's the baby of the group. All right. Very
And I
good.
started the group 19 years ago.
Well, I know you were telling me that you have some special things that you do in the community
We
that
do.
you love to do to help lift up families and folks.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Well, actually, this coming Saturday night, October the 19th, we have our annual Widower Assisted Living free dinner concert. It's a full course dinner with dessert and coffee, and then we do a concert. We don't charge anybody anything. There's no love offering, no tickets. It's just free, and we bring in people from the community and just love on them and let them know that although their spouse has gone on, they're not by themselves.
And it's all the way out there in Canton,
It's
Georgia.
Canton, Georgia, right. At the Hickory Flat Fellowship Church of God on Highway 140 in Canton. This coming Saturday, seating starts at 4:30. Dinner will be served. We do the serving at 5, concert at 6, and they're out of there by 7.
Well, I know it's going to be some good singing and some good food.
Yes, it always is, and it's such a blessing.
Well, I thank you all so much again for being with us, and I'm going to step out because you're not going to let me sing with you. So y'all go on and do that thing, would you? Go on and sing it up. Thank you.
Maybe next time.
I'm told about a city of beauty rare, how nothing on earth could ever compare to the glory that's waiting over on the other side. We'll be walking down the streets of purest gold in a land where we'll never grow old. Oh, what peace and joy there'll be where we'll never abide. It makes me want to go to a land that's flowing with honey. All the saints who have gone before. Join and sing with the happy angel band. It makes me want to hear it say, well done, welcome home, your race is run. We'll sing his praise while the ages roll. It makes me want to go. God's children have been longing for the day when the Savior will call his bride away. There will be shouting of joyful praise on that heavenly shore. We will live in sweetest harmony ever known as we gather all around the throne. Glad hosannas there will ring at the feet of our Lord. It makes me want to go to a land that's flowing with honey. All the saints who have gone before. It makes me want to join and sing with the happy I will never know that kind of loneliness. Your spirit never leaves me, even when I'm hurting. I don't have to bear that burden on my own. You carried all the pain and buried all the shame when you made that rugged tree your righteous throne. Because of you, I'll never walk alone. Came here as a man, I know you understand what it's like to walk these roads. My problems don't compare to that crown you had to wear. Still you take it as your own. Because of all the blood and tears you shed, I will never know that kind of loneliness. Your spirit never leaves me, even when I'm hurting. I don't have to bear that burden on my own. You carried all the pain and buried all the shame when you made that rugged tree your righteous throne. And because of you, I'll never walk alone. You carried all the pain and buried all the shame when you made that rugged tree your righteous throne. Because of you, I'll never walk alone. Lord, because of you, I'll never walk alone. Never walk
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Just a special group of men, and thank you for all that you're doing in the community, because that's important, truly important. Thank you so much. Well, my next guest, I already started talking to her. You know, I'm sorry, but there are certain things that I won't be able to repeat now because I've already talked about it. No, just kidding. I meet my new friend, Erica Strong. Erica, I just want to thank you for being here today and sharing some of your besties with me. That is a real pleasure. You're an author, you're a stylist, you are one of those women who can do a multitude of things and do them well. But isn't that the way it should be?
Yes.
I love it. The name of your latest book is called Finishing Strong: How to Think, Speak, and Live Strong Every Day. Every day. And there's the challenge. It's the consistency in everything that we do.
Yes.
As women, as Christians, as just folk in love with God, to be consistent is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Talk to us about what brought you to being the one who penned Finishing Strong.
Well, Finishing Strong started with my first book, Love Strong, Stand Strong, Finish Strong. That's the title of it. So while I was living out that book before it was even a book, I was writing this one before I even knew it was a book. Isn't it funny how life works?
Yes.
You live it out, and as I was living it out, I learned that journaling was healthy in what I was dealing with, because I was going through a devastating divorce. And for more, more people, they know divorce is like a death.
It is.
It's something that you mourn for or mourn from. And I remember being celebrity stylist, mother of 3, salon owner, show up perky like this every day,
yes.
and wanted to end my life.
Yes, yes. And people don't think it could possibly be that.
Exactly, because they think that somebody that's contemplating ending their life is wild hair, no makeup, strung out on the street. Nope. So just pay attention to the people that's next to you, because they could be in that space of desperation.
That's right.
So I started just journaling about what I was feeling and how I was feeling. And I used to read a lot of books on just like affirming yourself. And I remember deciding, like, you know what? I was reading the Bible to help me just kind of get my mind together, and I realized that we use the Bible as like this tool that, okay, God said he's going to do it, and then we wait for God to come down on heaven and do it for you. No, it's a tool to actually use.
Every day.
Every day.
All the time.
All the time.
In every situation.
In every situation.
And people don't get that.
They don't get that. So like I was listening, I'm reading one day, and I ran across Matthew 27:13. And it is, you are confirmed by your words and you are condemned by your words. And so as I'm reading other people's affirmations, I thought, wait a minute, I can confirm myself.
Yes.
Or I can condemn myself. And so I started just writing affirmations. I learned how to affirm myself. So in me journaling, every time I would open up my journal, I would pour out my heart, like every dark, deep thing that I was thinking, like I'm worthless, I feel like I'm nothing, blah, 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 and I'm crying and writing. I would never end that journal entry without affirming myself. And I literally started writing affirmations. And so when the first book was written, I started interjecting some of my affirmations in that book. And then I realized, wait a minute, here's a whole nother book.
And it's happening before my eyes.
Yes, like I promise you, I didn't plan it out. And so in learning that I am confirmed by my words and I'm condemned by my words, and then also how the Bible says that whatever a man thinks in his heart, so is he. All I kept thinking was, okay, God said, whatever you think in your heart. So that means in my heart, there's a connection between my thought and my mind.
Yes.
Because what I think is going to be what I believe. And what I believe is what's going to manifest. And so as I started writing those affirmations and I started seeing my life change, because I was manifesting his word over my life.
Yes.
I was manifesting what he said was going to happen over my life, and I started seeing my life change.
You began to realize that, hey, this Bible stuff really works.
And then I did it more like, because I had to personalize it.
Yeah.
So when I saw, that we are condemned by our words or we are affirmed by our words, I read it like, Erica.
Yes, exactly.
You are condemned by your words and you are affirmed by your words. So what story are you telling yourself? Because
I tell you that is probably the #1 key.
Yeah.
After receiving Christ, and we say we have received him, but then there's the action of receiving him.
The action.
That is very much involved with that particular understanding.
Because me growing up in church, I've been the little church girl that went to church 3 times a week and, wore dresses every day.
Yes.
And, like all of that, but I never learned how to effectively use God's word. And it wasn't until I started to personalize it for myself. Like, wait a minute, I cannot sit around passively waiting for God to come down from heaven and make it happen. Here's a whole manual on how to do it.
And he's given you the authority.
Absolutely.
He's given you the authority to use the manual to effectively change your life and everyone else around you. Because once you're changed, everything else around you changes.
And everything else changes without me even have to say anything.
Not a word.
Not a word.
Not a word. People, we talked about it earlier that young boys see their dad walk and they walk like their dad. Like at 2, they get up, they start walking like their dad. It's like, how in the world did they do that? Because children, and God tells us to become like a little child, children duplicate the exact action that they see.
Absolutely.
So if we would simply become like a little child and duplicate, be disciples,
Be disciples.
of what this word says, seeing
God transform, our lives would be nothing.
Absolutely.
Because it would become a regular way of seeing ourselves.
Yeah.
You hit on something that's so strong and so correct. And then you put it in here for others to be able to step out and to confirm. And I love this. I just turned to actions to confirm my words. So these are my do's.
Yeah.
Be doers of the word, not hearers only.
Absolutely.
Deceiving oneself.
Yeah.
So once you have this action, you have to confirm every word with an action.
Yep. And so what I love about the way that I did this book, because you'll ask, okay, Erica, you read all these affirmations, so now you have an affirmation book. What's the difference in everybody else's affirmation book? In this book, I give you an affirmation to kind of give you a frame of thought. But after every affirmation, I lead you into your own. So literally, the gift at the end of this book is it's yours. If you write your own affirmation after every one through my guidance, you would have written your own affirmation book, your own words.
And it directly speaks to what you have been through and where you're going.
Exactly.
So it is the true self-help.
Yeah, because literally, like, we expect something to do it for us or someone to do it for us. And if it doesn't happen, we'll sit back with the woe is me story. I have my master's in marriage and family therapy. And one of the therapies that I absolutely love is the narrative therapy. Because narrative therapy says that we tell ourselves a story that after it's repeated enough, we believe it.
Every time.
Every time. So whether it's a good story or a bad story, we're going to believe it. And when we believe it, so are we.
Yes.
So I always ask, what story are you telling yourself?
What story are you telling yourself? What story are you believing? What story are you acting out?
Exactly.
And it becomes what is it, the self-fulfilling prophecy, that that we've built this story in our head that is not at all what God says about us or to us.
At all.
At all.
At
and if we just shift the narrative, shift it back to what God says about us. Here's one I do. I get up in the morning, and I don't know about you, but as I always thought when I was watching Diane Carroll play Julia and June Cleaver and the reruns of, they all wore pearls, and it seemed like they just woke up with their little hairdos done, and they were like, oh.
Right.
And I just thought, hey, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to be on point. And then I woke up and looked in the mirror, and I said, I'm not.
No.
And I had to go to the mirror and begin to speak over myself. Life. You are the daughter of the Most High God.
Absolutely.
You are made in His image and His likeness. You are commanded, directed, and sent out to do great things in the marketplace. So I stand in the mirror and I say that to myself, especially on those mornings that I get kind of loud, that I have allowed something to creep in that should never have been there. Because it isn't a part of what my daddy said.
Right, and remember, we are supposed to renew our minds daily. But you know what? I say, God, instead of daily, second by second, minute by minute.
I will be in the car, and something will happen, and I'll go, oh, I'm the daughter of the Most High God. I'm anointed to do great things in the marketplace.
Exactly.
Wherever you feel your flesh rise, that's the place to
cast
apply.
it down. Mine
That's
is,
it.
I am one with God, and His grace is upon me. I don't care what it is.
That's it.
I look at the bill
day.
and I don't have the money. I am one with God, and His grace is upon me. I go to the doctor's office. I am one with God, and His grace is upon me. Whatever it is, it's just I stand in that affirmation. One of the revelations that I had, and it's funny how the Bible always refer back to nature, but I'll just use something as simple as an EKG. You know how, like, when you're looking at a heartbeat, it's like boop, 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 boop,
yes,
boop, boop,
yes,
boop.
yes.
Why do we think our life is supposed to be ooh? If it was just one line, we would be dead.
We are flat line.
So the boop boop is good, the bad, the good, the bad, the good, the bad. But the thing that's consistent is I am one with God.
That's it. That's it.
And His grace is upon me.
That's it. And if we use the analogy of the EKG, we are always going up.
Always.
And we are never staying down.
Never staying down.
We are never staying down.
Exactly.
We are going through something. We are not staying there.
Exactly. But the narrative says, why did this happen to me? How could they do this to me? How could I be molested? How can I have cancer? How can I? And it's like, boo, 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 boo.
Yeah. And really, when you really take a look at it, when we begin to confirm what God says about us, we begin to be that confirmation.
Absolutely.
We begin to be it.
Yeah.
So when I see you, I should be confirming who you are.
Absolutely.
And every time I see you, I should be using confirming words. If truly I am your sister in Christ.
Truly.
So I've got to be confirming of who God says you are.
Right.
Not tearing down.
Yeah.
That's just
one of the ways that
important.
helped me to see that is when I say I am one with God, and I know you to be one with God, that means we're one.
Together.
Together.
Yep.
We're all one.
Yep. There's so many things that would be dismissed or resolved and dissolved if we could and would communicate from the foundation of God's word versus the things that we learn in the atmosphere that it is not ours anyway. We're supposed to be going into the atmosphere, being the change agent.
Changing it. Exactly.
This finishing strong is a change agent.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love what you've done in leading the affirmation, but then saying, here is your chance
work. Exactly.
to say, here are my actions for a strong finish. Here are my actions to confirm my words. Here, every step, it's for the reader to take the initiative. Ooh, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
To step right in, to talk
it's your job. It's your job. God gave you that power.
And that's clear.
And that's clear.
We've got just so much here, so much meat here. But you guys, I want you to know that you have the opportunity to finish strong. You have the opportunity to do all of this without question. You just got to take your opportunity. If you're feeling like you can't do it on your own, just call 300-9828. That's 770-300-9828. The prayer partners will pray with you, will listen, will be there to encourage you, because finishing strong is what we are all able to do. We'll be right back.
Good afternoon. I'm Minister Betty Dixon from New Jerusalem Baptist Church, where Pastor Elijah Collins is my pastor. And I'm here at TV 57 Prayer Room, where we have prayer warriors in this room waiting on you to call the number, 770-300-9828. Call the number so they can pray with you and pray for you. We know there's a lot going on in this world today, but these prayer warriors, and I know a God that can fix it for you. So call the number and we will pray with you. Whatever you got going on. We've had a few call-ins. We've had call-in for jobs. We have call-in for sickness. We've had call-ins for healing. We had Denise call in, said she called here a couple of weeks ago, and someone prayed for her, and guess what? God moved, and she got a job. So we're expecting you to call that number and connect with one of the prayer warriors and see, won't God work it out just for you? And if you're not saved and you're watching our program right now and you don't know Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, listen, I like for people to read along with me. Go get your Bibles and turn to Romans the 10th chapter, verse 9 and 10. There is a scripture that will help you, and it says, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in the heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. If you just read that and believe that and accept that, guess what? You are saved, just like I am today. So we just need you to call the number, 770-300-9828. You have a good night, and guess what? We're getting ready to go back to the studios.
Thank you so much to all of the prayer partners in there. And I know that they have been ministering strong all evening. It's just such an important position. I've told this story a million times, and I'll tell it every time I come here. Many, many years ago, I was having a very, very dark moment, Erica. And it was one of those moments where I thought, how in the world can I get through this? And I turned on the television. I turned on Atlanta Live. And I called 770-300-9828. And no one said, well, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. They just said, let me pray for you. I don't even know if I said what was wrong.
Wow.
I just said, I need someone to pray with me and for me.
Wow.
And that happened. So sometimes it's just that simple. It's just that simple. You don't have to get a whole lot. You just have to get exactly what you need.
Absolutely.
And when you wrote Finishing Strong, you were getting exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
But that gift that was given to you, you were able to pass on to others.
Absolutely.
How to think, speak, and live strong every day. And it's the consistency that'll get you.
That's it.
It's every day that you
Every
need
day,
it.
yeah.
When you think about all of the men and women that you've met that have heard about the book, have read the book, that have been affected by the book, what would you say is the resounding one thing that have brought people to this moment of needing this?
I don't even know if it's one thing. I think it's like although we have different circumstances that happen in our lives, the emotions is the same.
It's the same. Both
Depression is the same.
men and
Sadness
women.
is the same. Happiness is the same.
Look, you guys, if you want to finish strong, I suggest that you first read the Word and then try this, Finishing Strong, how to think, speak, and live strong every day. I'm BJ Arnett. We love you. God bless you.